MH370 took off from Kuala Lumpur on March 8, 2014. The Boeing 777 was en route to Beijing with 239 people on board, including 12 crew members and 227 passengers from 15 countries. The flight was scheduled to last just over 6 hours. The weather was favorable, the crew was experienced, and the route was standard. There was no sign of a disaster. However, less than an hour after takeoff, the plane disappeared from radar. This was the beginning of one of the most mysterious aviation tragedies of the 21st century. While over the South China Sea, MH370 contacted Malaysian air traffic control. The last words transmitted from the cockpit were calm. "Good night, Malaysian 370." A few minutes later, when the plane was supposed to come under the control of Vietnamese air traffic controllers, the connection suddenly broke off. Almost simultaneously, the signal from the secondary radar, which shows the data on the plane, number, altitude, course, disappeared. It was as if MH370 had evaporated. However, the primary radars of military systems continued to track the plane for almost another hour. According to this data, the Boeing made an unexpected left turn, returned over Malaysia, crossed the peninsula, and went towards the Andaman Sea. The flight was non-standard. The trajectory resembled manual piloting, not automatic. After that, complete silence. The plane disappeared from all surveillance systems. For several days, an active search was conducted in the South China Sea, the supposed disappearance zone. But data received later from the Inmarsat satellite system indicated that MH370 was in a completely different part of the planet. The ping signal from the plane continued to arrive for almost 7 hours after it disappeared from the radar. This made it possible to identify two possible arcs of movement, one in the northern direction to Central Asia, the second in the southern direction, south of the Indian Ocean. The choice fell on the southern corridor. The reason was the lack of confirmation of MH370 flying through the airspace of India, Pakistan, China, and other countries. The largest international operation to search for the missing plane began. The search area shifted to the southwest of Australia. Dozens of ships, aircraft, and underwater vehicles were involved. However, neither the fuselage, nor the black boxes, nor the bodies were found. Only almost 2 years later, on the shores of Reunion Island, and then in other places in the Indian Ocean, debris officially recognized as part of MH370 began to be found. These finds confirmed that the plane really crashed in the southern part of the ocean. But this did not answer the main question: why? And most importantly, what exactly happened on board during those 7 hours after the loss of contact? Many aviation experts began to consider the version of a deliberate deviation from the course. The investigative team's report indicated that the plane was most likely switched to manual control. One of the pilots or a third party turned off the communications equipment, changed the course, and deliberately flew the plane into a remote area of the ocean. This theory gained momentum after it became known that a flight simulator was found on the home computer of Captain Zaharie Ahmad Shah, and in his memory, they found a training session on a route similar to the one that MH370 later flew. However, no direct evidence of his involvement was presented. Supporters of alternative versions claimed that external forces could have been involved in the disappearance. Scenarios of hijacking, terrorist attack, technical error, and military intervention were considered. One of the possible scenarios is the hijacking of the plane and its landing at a remote base. Attempts were made to link this version with the northern arc of movement, but it was not confirmed. Other versions pointed to the possibility of a catastrophic depressurization and a slow loss of consciousness of the crew and passengers. However, in this case, it remained unclear why the plane continued to fly in an irregular trajectory, rather than in a straight line. It was also not explained how the communication systems could have been switched off. An investigation conducted by the Malaysian government, as well as experts from Australia, China, and other countries, ultimately came to the conclusion that it was impossible to establish the exact cause of the disappearance. The official report, published in 2018, contains many technical details, but provides few answers. It emphasizes that the actions of the crew after the last contact could not be explained by any standard scenarios. Meanwhile, the families of the victims continue to fight for the truth. Many of them are convinced that MH370 did not simply disappear, but became the victim of a carefully covered-up disaster, possibly with the participation of state structures. Some independent researchers, including former pilots and aviation analysts, are also convinced of this. They argue that much of the data was either not published or was interpreted to favor a particular version. There is also a theory that the plane was intercepted either from within or from without. This theory has long been discussed amid geopolitical conflicts in the region, especially given that employees of major tech companies, including Freescale Semiconductor, were on board. Some conspiracy theories have pointed to the possible value of some of the passengers or cargo carried by Flight MH370. However, all of these theories remain unproven. MH370 has become a symbol of modern mystery. In a world where satellites record every inch of the surface, a huge passenger airliner disappeared without a trace for 7 long hours. And despite an international investigation, technological advances, and global interest, the world has yet to receive a definitive answer. Meanwhile, debris that experts later identified as parts of MH370 began washing up on the shores of Western Australia, including a wing fragment, stabilizers, and cockpit panels. All of them showed signs of damage, but did not indicate an explosion or sudden crash. Their location and the nature of the damage confirmed the version that the plane crashed into the ocean. But why then have they still not been able to find the black boxes that were supposed to emit signals? The answer is hidden in the depths. The area where the plane supposedly crashed is one of the most inaccessible and deepest parts of the world's oceans. There are steep underwater cliffs, temperature anomalies, and virtually zero visibility. Even with advanced technology, searching there is like looking for a needle in a black hole. But there is another version. There were no signals because someone turned off the beacons in advance. Too many ifs. Internal documents released later suggest that in the first hours after the flight disappeared, Malaysian authorities were confused, relaying incorrect coordinates, delaying their response, and missing important details. This gave rise to speculation about a cover-up. Journalistic investigations show that MH370 may have been carrying not only passengers but also sensitive cargo, including equipment related to the defense industry. If true, the motives may be quite different. And yet, why has the main body of the plane not been found for so many years? Why has no one in the military recorded its exact location? Australian and American satellites monitor the entire region. Could such a colossus really have disappeared without a trace? Against this background, even darker versions are emerging. Allegedly, MH370 was intercepted and taken to a closed military zone, where its fate was sealed. Some point to the American base on the island of Diego Garcia, others to secret intelligence operations. They are hard to believe, but there are too many inconsistencies in the official story. The main thing is that no version gives a comprehensive answer, and the families of the victims are still waiting. They have become hostages of international bureaucracy, political interests, and black spots on the map. The MH370 case is not just the disappearance of an airplane. It is a symbol of how vulnerable the truth is when major interests are at stake.